Okay, so hi everyone, welcome on board. Welcome to Cat King. This is Anisha here, and today we are going to talk about the NMAT exam. So, quickly, guys, on the chat, why don't all of you guys punch in your NMAT dates? When are you writing the NMAT exam? And we'll make sure we make it fun and exciting for all of you to crack NMAT and come on this side like all the rest of us. So, let's hear it from everybody. When are you taking your NMAT exams? Okay, I can see most of them have not yet appeared for the exam. Very interesting. Lovely. Great. 16th December. Post CAT, I think most of you guys are giving it 10th December, 4th December, right after CAT. Lovely. So before we start ahead and talk more about, the NMAT prep strategy, Aditya and Roocha, why don't you first give a quick introduction to all the people who are listening to us about you. Then we go into and deep dive in the NMAT prep. Let's have you first, Aditya.
Go ahead, Roocha. Okay, I'll start. So, hello everyone. I'm Aditya and I graduated from NMIMS in 2023. Giving a background of myself, I'm an engineer, computer science engineer. The most common category, I'm a GEM, general engineer male. So, I did my engineering in 2018, worked for close to 2.5 years at a big four company, Deloitte. Just like every other engineer, thinking yaar ye mere liye nahi hai, and I decided to do an MBA. I appeared for CAT, I appeared for Examlex and MAT, SNAP. So obviously CAT सबका first priority रहता है. I also had that as my first priority. I got a close to 98.xx 99, but being a gem again, कुछ calls आती नहीं है. So NMAT, NMIMS was my savior. So yes, I converted colleges like NMAT, through SNAP again, baby IIMs, new IIMs. So that's that. I did my internship at Bain, BCN, and then I finally converted Everest Group. So right now I'm working at Everest Group. That's a brief about me. Roocha, you can take over.
Lovely. So that's pretty interesting for all the gem guys out here who are, scared कि मेरे को call आएगी कि नहीं आएगी. CAT के through cutoffs बहुत high होते हैं. I think you should take him as a role model. Give your best shot in all the exams, and then we will choose, where and how. And I'm sure it was a tough decision. So we'll come back to it, Aditya, why and how you made that decision. Over to you, Roocha.
Thank you, ma'am. So, I'm a general engineer female, and besides that, I have appeared for civil services exams, gave a bunch of attempts, so I spent some years in that as well. So I have those gap years, and then I worked with a startup for a year to gain some hands-on experience, and then I started with my MBA journey at NMIMS, and currently I'm in the first year of MBA in NMIMS. And maybe I could, over the course of the discussion, I could elaborate more on how I landed in NMIMS over the other colleges.
Lovely. That's pretty interesting. And how was Diwali this year, Roocha?
Diwali was great. I mean, it was a long vacation after a very long time. The first trimester is very hectic in MBA. So we got a good break.
So guys who are not aware of it, Aditya, when is Diwali great in first trimester?
Obviously after summer internship.
Done. So हम नहीं reveal करेंगे, guys. That's something which is not allowed. So we'll not share that. But batch strength is too much. Pressure बहुत ज़्यादा है, बहुत hectic है. All of these things can be dealt with, taken care of. She's out here. Unfortunately, we had one more student who got dropped because of network, but we'll bring her on board sometime later. So, Roocha, let's discuss about you. We have Aditya with seasoned experience of 3 years of mentoring students, and you being the first time out here. Tell me, what was your NMAT score?
My score was 255.
Brilliant. That's amazing. So that's like, 255 first attempt.
Right.
How much did you study? How many months, how many years did you study? How many mocks did you give? And what was your D-Day strategy so that all of the people out here who probably are writing, in the next 15-20 days, their NMAT exam, what should they do?
So it so happened that I got my NMAT slot before the CAT exam because of the dates and the availability in my city. But like everyone, even I was planning to give it later on, but because of these circumstances, I got a slot earlier. So I decided to take it as a mock test for CAT itself. So because I wasn't really preparing for NMAT specifically, wasn't targeting that. So it was only for about 2-3 days before the NMAT exam, I tried to go for some mock tests, try and understand how NMAT is different from CAT in terms of the syllabus as well as the pattern. And I created a strategy around that.
Lovely. So tell me, with so less days and, because you were focusing on CAT, if you were to highlight some major factors, what makes CAT and NMAT different? What would you say?
The adaptive pattern of the exam and no negative marking are the key differentiators. So I decided that I would attempt all the questions. And when I gave the mock tests, I tried identifying patterns of repetitive questions or questions coming from a certain area. So I tried working upon them, particularly the quant section and the DILR part of it. Also, I tried understanding how much time I'm taking, analyzing the speed and time management, because since you have no negative marking, you should try to go for 100% attempt. And I'm not sure, but apparently not attempting a question would make you lose marks.
Yep.
So in this kind of a examination pattern. So uh, understanding where you should not lose your time and what are the areas where you can score well, what are your strengths, just playing your strength is where I try to focus.
Lovely. That's great. So we'll come back to you on the strengths part. Adi, what about you? How was your NMAT prep journey like?
So first of all, I will share my score. Since I was preparing for CAT again, just like Roocha, and NMAT was something that happened, on the go. I scored 258 in NMAT and a merit rank of close to 200. That being said, my NMAT journey, one thing that I'll say NMAT and CAT may difference is you can select your sections, your preference, like which order you give. So,
Yeah.
like, unlike in CAT, where I had to give points in the last, LR in the middle, I could choose my own preference depending on my strengths. So LR was my strength, points, and verbal was something that I usually prefer to do in the end. So that is how I used to do. Another strategy for people could be who are very good in verbal and want to use it as a, warm up to the logical and the quant section,
Yeah.
so that their brain is warmed up. So that is also one strategy. So that is one leeway where you get in NMAT. So how it's different from CAT or even Snap or ZAT or whatsoever, right? You get the leeway to choose your section. So that is one thing. My NMAT journey, again, I would say prior to NMAT, I did appear for mocks. Mock analysis is another important part. Understanding the difference between NMAT and any other exam, CAT, ZAT, IFT, the difficult ones, is another key thing, because like in NMAT, you don't get geometry, right? There's a huge focus on data sufficiency. There's, I think around we get 12 to 16 questions from critical reasoning. So understanding which sections are more heavy, like heavier, and then preparing for them is one thing that I did. So I understood which, so like for example, CR and DI is something that is very calculation intensive. It's not difficult, like NMAT is not difficult, it's more calculation intensive and you need to be quick, right? So that is one thing that I worked on before NMAT. So just to summarize, NMAT specific prep prior to NMAT for maybe 2.5 weeks. Baki subjects are same here. If you're preparing for time speed distance, it remains time speed distance. If you're preparing for CAT, SNAP, ZAT, so automatically those topics get covered. So that's it.
Lovely. That's pretty interesting. So your approach was to start with quants, LR, and then move to verbal.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. How about you, Roocha? What was your section-wise strategy?
I went for language first because, as Aditya mentioned, that it acts as a warm up and it gave me confidence because I found those questions really easy. And then I went for DI and then quant because quant was not really a very strong area. Also, I tried identifying through the mock test, I tried identifying what are my time wasters or those areas which I'm not confident at all, no matter how much I try to prepare specifically. So I tried avoiding spending more time on those questions, just randomly clicked on any of the options during my exam day. So that really helped so that I could spend more time on my strong areas.
That's great. That's really interesting. So that's something, in fact, even I also always recommend that you start with verbal for two reasons. One, it's the shortest section. Second, when you start, you are more fresh. So reading speed is faster. you can try it out in your mock test and see how it works for you, because everybody has a different approach. Some people love to start with something which is the most difficult. Some people love to start with something which is their strongest suit. So you can try your hands on these mock tests. But like I said, start with verbal, then LR, then come to quants and DI, because quants and DI is more calculation intensive and process based, right? But you have two different contrasting people, both of them 250 plus, sitting inside NMIMS. तो अपनी strategy खुद बनानी है, right? So that's pretty interesting. Aditya, if you had to tell someone, like, certain topics, like you picked up CR and DI. So if you were to give them some must-do topics in each of the sections, what would you recommend? Like, Roocha, what would you suggest, since you said quants was not your best foot? तो क्या करना ही करना है, even if something you're scared of?
I don't remember a lot of those questions right now, but I knew what I wanted to avoid. So
Okay.
lengthy passages and more calculative questions was something that I avoided always.
Okay, that's interesting. How about you, Adi? What kind of subjects?
So what I did was I divided all three sections into the chapter-wise questions. So things that I got was obviously mensuration and geometry nahi aata, whereas number system used to have around, I remember, 4 to 5 questions. Then we had DI was something significant, and it was very calculation intensive. So percentages is something that needs to be at the tip of your fingers. If I ask you, say maybe 3 by 12 or maybe something like this, or say 1 by 12, you should be able to convert it to percentage within a fraction of seconds. That's how quick you need to be. So percentages is something that's absolutely necessary, like converting fractions to decimals, vice versa. Again, DI, you need to practice because you become good in it only with practice. CR is something, all those which statement strengthens the above paragraph or whatsoever. Then which weekends, which of the following is continuation. So all those things are necessary again. And then switching to verbal RCs, I remember 2 to 3 RCs used to come. And then there were, I think, I don't remember exactly verbal. I think parajumbles 4 5 rehte the. So similarly, like critical reasoning, DI, and majorly like percentages are things that have to be there, and data sufficiency. So data sufficiency is very easy if you understand it. It's just like percentage ka koi question de denge, time work, and you need to. So it's not difficult, but you need to have the presence of mind. So that's how I divide it.
Lovely.
Also, you're likely to find 2-3 questions on logical programming, those sequencing kind of questions. I tried preparing for them for NMAT because it's not a part of CAT syllabus, but again, I was not confident, so I avoided those questions.
Okay, so people who are wondering what is those logical sequences, essentially your input-output questions. Again, that is with practice. If you've practiced, aa jayenge samajh mein. Nahi aaye to bhi you can, do smart guesses, move on, attempt the rest of the questions and get good scores. So, that's something which is very nice. You guys both made it with 250 plus. How was the entire WATPI experience then? Like, did you take it laid back कि यार अच्छा score आ गया है, अब interview तो chill है, हो ही जाएगा, या क्या क्या करना चाहिए for interview process for people who already have NMAT scores in hand?
Yeah, so that's the good thing about NMAT, because you get the scores immediately. And in my case, it happened before the CAT. So that was a good feeling because I had something in hand. So I knew that I was most likely going to get the interview call. So I was very much focused and wanted to make the best out of this opportunity. But in case of WATPI, again, because of my UPSC experience, I had that perspective of, multidimensional thinking and multidisciplinary approach towards looking at any topic. So I had a couple of structures, but otherwise, content-wise, I did not prepare anything much for WATPI. But yes, interview, again, it's a whole different ball game.
Lovely. How about you, Aditya? What do you think? What should these people do with respect to the entire WATPI process?
So one thing about NMIMS WATPI process, I was part of the first batch, which was shifting from that offline to online exam. And we were told suddenly, instead of the usual CDPI that happens in NMIMS, we would be having the WATPI.
Yeah.
And we all, if I remember, were very shocked. Ki what we would we get the normal what topics like एक line दे देंगे, would we get passage based and everything. So again, and to highlight something that happened last year, NMIMS introduced something new as Watson Glacier test, right? So NMIMS can throw anything out of the box, whether it's what PI, it could be GDP, what's a, you just need to be prepared for it. Just be prepared. If you're prepared, you would definitely ace it. Coming to my preparations, so when we were appearing for what, I was on the second day of the interview schedule. So we had just one day. I remember the first lot came, and then they suddenly threw a passage that, like we were told that there was a passage that came, which was a relatively long passage, 250 words or something, and we were out of the, we were totally stumped ki how to prepare for a 250 word word.
Yeah.
So we prepared for that in one day. But again, what plays in your favor, you need to have a structure. So within one day, उस time तो उतना thought process नहीं था, but over the years, like last year, Roocha and other people that I mentored. So I remember like one thing that definitely helps in what is having a structure. Like you start with a case. So generally, whatever, no matter whether they give you a one-liner or whether they give you a 50-word, 100-word, it would be some kind of a problem statement. So you need to introduce or first of all identify the problem statement, then introduce it, then find what are the possible issues, what are the solutions, what are the mitigation measures. So essentially, one thing that I used to, the approach I followed was think like a manager. Yeah.
Correct.
So that helps. So what would a manager do? A manager would have a mitigation measure also. So adding those things could be the deal breakers in that 10% what is other difference होता है, but adding these lines could be the difference between a standard 5 scoring a 5% or a 8-9%. So that's for what. Again, PI are pretty random, so you need to prepare. If you're from a working background, you need to know your company inside out. You need to know your domain inside out. Like for example, I was in Deloitte. I was asked what are the KPIs for your role. I was an analyst, right? Another of my friends was working in an FMCG company, and they're like, what are the major trends? So you need to know not only your company but also the industry inside out. Apart from that, general current affairs, and this is not only for NMIMS, all like abhi the conflict chal raha hai, Israel-Palestine war, or maybe abhi elections, so it could be done. Then again, the places where you belong. So I essentially divided everything into 5 buckets. One was around my workets, one was around my UG, because you can be asked technical, especially for freshers. Freshers need to prepare UG. So I prepared questions. कि वर्केट्स है तो वर्केट्स में divided. Then UG है तो since I'm from a CS background, I created a list of 50 questions that could be asked. Then again there were general topics like current affairs जो चल रहा है. Then there were things related to my profile like my hobbies, my internships, and other things like that. So these are things like you divide it into buckets, prepare questions, what can come, and obviously hygiene questions, strengths, weaknesses. Then there are questions like leadership experience, and that is where I think. So I remember taking a lot of mock interviews last year, and these are questions that we asked. So these help you again. So these are things that I think I approach for my WATPI process.
Lovely. That's really great. So for people who are planning to get started with your prep, the kind of structure Aditya mentioned. So in the Cat King dockets are also done by Aditya, where we have sample case studies and case study structures, solutions and interviews. And like you mentioned, so I'm sure you took more than 300 plus students interviews last year, Aditya.
I don't remember the count, but yes, I took a lot of interviews. Even Anvita is there, Roocha, I remember that. So these are people whose interviews I took prior to NMIMS. And if I didn't even take interviews, helping them frame their answers, why NMIMS, why MBA, why, particular job, why, I remember a lot of people last year came to me with a question that they had a gap, like Roocha, like similar to Roocha. So there are a couple of people, and I remember helping them frame answers why they had a gap and how it's, because you'll be asked these questions if you have a gap in your CV. If you're an engineer, then engineering should be MBA. You already have a good package, why MBA? You come from a B. So helping them frame those questions. So yes, I remember all these things.
Lovely. That's really nice. So it's been 2 years. He's been with us doing all of these sessions, evaluating SOPs, helping you structure, because NM process starts with first submitting your SOPs. So we'll prepare you for that as well. One last thing before we sign off, Roocha, is how did you justify that shift from UPSC to MBA and that gap, because that's something which maybe NMIMS or the other colleges, everybody tends to ask. So what was your rationale behind that?
It's all about your willingness to keep on learning, the pursuit of knowledge, and keep growing. Also, in my PI, I was asked this question about why it took me 4 attempts, or what were the lessons I learned. So I think it's all about justifying your story, being able to tell how you navigated through all these turns, and what is it that you're looking for when you're going for an MBA.
Lovely. That's really great. So people who think that, if you have a gap year, you can't make it, you can, as long as you are honest about your journey, your stories, what you learned, and rest. Once these guys have their scores in hand, we start with the interview prep. You guys will help all of them also crack and come on to this side.
Just like every year, it feels good. I remember Roocha being on the other side. So it feels good when someone, cracks a college and comes back and says that, yes, I converted. So definitely.
Lovely. Great. So that's, something really nice. One last thing is everybody's asking, what is a good score? What, like they have 249, 240. So what would you suggest, what can be the cutoffs, or about what score should they start preparing for their interviews already?
If you have anything above, I think 240 is definitely a safe score with good sectionals. Generally, the cutoffs hover around like what we have seen in the last 3 years is around 235 to 240 range. So if you have anything above 240 with good sectionals, you are good to go. You should start preparing again to first prepare appear for CAT, and then once you're done, then I think you should start preparing for it.
Brilliant.
So we would highly recommend going for the official mock tests, the practice tests that are available on the NMAT site.
Lovely. That's great. Any parting thoughts for these people who are going to give NMAT round around CAT, a couple of days before and after? Any last minute tips for these people?
I would say identify your strengths and weaknesses and play your strengths.
Lovely.
That's great. Aditya, any parting thoughts for them?
Just go with a fresh mind. Don't stress out. You will definitely do well because you have prepared. You have, like, whether for CAT or whether NMAT is your goal, you would have prepared for it. So the main thing over there, a deciding factor, is your mindset. So go with a positive mindset, give it your best, and yes, attempt all questions. Do not leave a single question. So that's that.
Lovely. That's really great. So people like Rahul who are asking, I have 3 days after CAT before your NMAT exam. I think I would suggest you to do is take a mock test, make sure you keep that as your best benchmark ahead, revise the formulas, and go with a very calm mind. That's it. Nothing else in 3 days. For people who've got 10 to 15 days in hand, you have a lot of opportunity to score and maximize by, doing basic LOD1 questions of LR, because that's a very differentiating section as compared to CAT. So make sure you are practicing that. If you are a CAT King student, make sure you attend those everyday NMAT Snap classes and the Saturday boot camps. We'll also make you meet a couple of these toppers, get their insights and strategies, and let's get started with the interview prep soon. Okay, so that's it from our end. I hope it was helpful for all of you guys. All the best. And if there's something which we've missed out, do drop in the comments and we'll all take up your questions. And we look forward to seeing you guys join the CAT King and NMIMS family soon.
Thank you. All the best.